I used this $2 thrifted pillowcase to make a dress for my daughter during nap time. There are 2 ways to do this, and they are both beginner friendly. Let me show you how. Comment below and let me know which pillowcase dress you lean towards and that you think you'll try out. You'll need an armhole pattern, and this will just make sure that you cut the right size armhole for the dress, and I've linked this below. Both of these pillowcases are originally from Target, but I found them at my thrift store because a lot of Target items go to our local thrift store. So always check your thrift store before buying a pillowcase, or maybe you have one that you can already repurpose. For both dresses, you'll want 2 measurements. You need the measurement from the shoulder to where you want your dress to land. So this could be below the knee, above the knee. You also need your daughter's chest measurement from armpit to armpit. So take out your pillowcases and prepare them by ironing them and giving them a good press. Take your length measurement and add 1 inch to this measurement. Now, from the hem of the pillowcase, measure and cut across the pillowcase. Make sure you save your remaining fabric for later and fold your pillowcase in half, making sure the hem is at the bottom, and where you cut the fabric originally, you're going to line up the armhole pattern to the side where the straight part is against the edge of the pillowcase. Make sure it's opposite to where the fold is, so that when you open the pillowcase, you'll have 2 armholes. Turn your pillowcase wrong side out, and around the curved edges of the armhole and at the corner where the seam is, you want to just make a little notch, and you're going to fold over the fabric about 1/8 to 1/4 of an inch all the way around the armhole. It's a little tricky on the curved edges, that's why we made these notches. Iron it, and then you're going to fold it once more to enclose this open edge, and this is where you'll create your seam. You can make as many notches as you need so that the armhole can kind of follow that curve easily. Make sure you change out your thread to match the pillowcase and sew along the edge of the arm opening. Repeat this for the other armhole. Now at the top of the pillowcase where you cut across, you want to fold over the top 1/2 inch and then press this in place, and then fold it once more 1 inch to create a channel for the drawstring to go through. From the right side facing up, do a top stitch across, making the channel, and you can make sure you're sewing right along the edge by using a little measurement along the way. Turn your dress right side out, and now we're going to make the straps for the drawstring opening. Use your remaining pillowcase fabric and cut a 1.5" by 20" piece. You're going to want 2 of these. So since the pillowcase is already folded in half, you can just cut this in half. Now you're going to fold the strap into thirds and sew along the side. Add a safety pin to the end of your strap and start weaving it through the channel. When the end of the strap reaches the end of the channel, you can pin it in place to make sure it doesn't get lost in the channel. When you reach the end, cinch up and gather this channel together, and this is when you want it to measure the chest measurement of your daughter. Once it is the correct width, you can pin it in place. And you want to sew a top stitch across the stitches that are already at the end, and this is gonna just keep the strap in place. Do the same thing for the back piece, and then you can tie your straps together and your dress is finished. For the second way to make a pillowcase tutorial, this one is just as easy. It has a few more steps, but it doesn't mean it's any harder. I think it's nice to have a different method, and what you're going to do is the same steps apply from the first one. You're going to measure out your pillowcase and measure from the bottom hem. You can measure from your child's shoulder to wherever you want it to land, because we'll be cutting off a few inches with the sleeves. Then you're going to open it up with the remaining pillowcase or a coordinating fabric. You're going to seam rip the edges to create a larger piece of fabric, and I measured roughly around the opening of the armhole pattern that I'm using and doubled this and then added about 7 inches. And this is gonna be the strap. I'm cutting this on the bias, which means 45 degrees across the fabric, and the reason I'm doing this is because it's stretchy and it's gonna allow the fabric to curve nicely around the armholes. The same bust measurement from armpit to armpit, you're going to take that measurement and cut a 2-inch strip. You're going to cut 2 of these. This is for the front and the back. You want to fold over your fabric pieces, making sure you're folding in the end and then folding it in thirds. It's going to create this bias tape that you're going to use around the armholes, and you're going to do the same method for the chest piece. Give it a good iron, and then you can move on to the next steps. We're going to do a gather stitch, so you're going to move the stitch length on your sewing machine to as long as it can go. That is level 5, and I'm going to sew across the top of the front and the back with 2 rows. This is going to create leverage for me to hold on to the bobbin and gather the front and the back to the same measurement of the armpit front piece. And you're going to do the same thing for the back. Once you have it all gathered up, you can lay out your rectangle that you cut earlier in front of you and just move around the gathers until it's the same width as the piece in front of you. With the right sides facing together, pin your front rectangle to the front gather section and sew across at 1/2 inch. Make sure you move the stitch length back to its original state so that it's a tighter stitch and it won't fall out later. Then you're going to turn over your front piece and you're going to fold it and iron it so that you can fold it once more and hide this gather section within this front panel piece. Now that it's all ironed in place, you can poke a pin through where the edge is, and this will show you if you're gonna match up and catch the piece on the back so you don't miss it. You wanna sew right over this. So if it's a little difficult, you can hand sew this. But what I like to do is just move the needle position over to the right so that it's easy and I know exactly where the needle is gonna go. Then sew across the front and do the same steps for the back. Now for the straps, you're going to take the bias tape that you already prepared and fold it in half. Mark the center of the armpit, then you're going to pin it in place all the way around the armhole and start from the top and sew right sides together the bias tape to the dress. And it's already ironed, so this should be an easy step, and you're just going to enclose this opening within the bias tape and do the same thing with the pin to make sure that when you sew, you're going to enclose the bias tape and not miss it. So now you can put it under your sewing machine, move the needle over if you need to, and slowly stitch around the entire bias tape, starting at the top of the bias tape, so that it's all enclosed. And that is all that you have to do for this pillowcase dress. That's all for this version of the pillowcase dress. You can grab the free pattern below. If you want some more children's beginner-friendly sewing patterns, then click this next video.